They stepped inside. The creature was stretched on an improvised deck built onto low scaffolding. Several banks of lights were set up around the perimeter, dimmed to provide barely adequate illumination. There was a stratum of mist in the air, like morning fog just lifting from the ground. The carcass glistened eerily in the dim light. Charles felt an instant coursing of adrenaline. Very few people in modern times had experienced this moment, the first look at an unknown species. If Nessie, Bigfoot, the Jersey Devil, and El Chupacabra had been piled on the table in front of him, he couldn't have been more amazed. Up until this instant, he'd thought this entire adventure was bullshit. He had expected to see what the so-called cryptozoologists called a globster, some half-rotten whale or shark or even oarfish, maybe albino or malformed or wrapped in the tentacles of a giant squid. But this was the real deal. The adrenaline rush pushed hard at his fight-or-flight reflex. Forcing himself to calmly approach this thing was making him confused, intrigued, frightened, giddy, amazed. In short, a little crazy. A variety of incongruous feelings ricocheted inside his head as he took in the massive carcass, resting on a bed of melting, crushed ice. Nothing in a lifetime spent on and under the sea had prepared Charles for this. His first impression was of an extraordinarily large fish from the deepest part of the ocean, an abyssal. But weird as some of the known abyssals were, this creature was in a league of its own. The old cliché goes, you have to see it to believe it. Charles had a sudden sense of how profound that expression could be. He dropped his knapsack by the door and began walking around the specimen, the lieutenant at his side. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, he mumbled as he walked. Sir? What? Oh, just a bit of nonsense. Didn't mean to speak out loud. Jabberwocky, isn't it? She handed Charles a pair of blue latex gloves. It is indeed. Good for you. He pulled the gloves on. But if you ask me, this thing is more of a bandersnatch. Charles laughed, appropriately for once, and a particularly frumious one at that. Sir, do you want to dictate some field notes now? The lieutenant produced a small digital voice recorder. Her little black bag seemed to be a bottomless resource. Sure, thanks. Charles took the recorder. The lieutenant quickly showed him the controls. Charles started talking. First, let me say for the record, I am not familiar with this species. It appears to be a previously unknown member of the aquatic Chordata phylum, which is to say a fish or eel of some kind, class, order, species, all unknown. Presumably there is data on file as to length, girth, and weight, but suffice to say this is a very big animal. It is flat-bottomed, like a shark or a grouper. He walked towards its head and paused to pull one of the fins away from its body, which fanned out to reveal vibrant crimson webbing. Spectacular. It seems to have 2 sets of pelvic fins. The webbing is unusual. He stopped, pausing the recorder. Off the record, he said, turning back to the lieutenant. Yes, sir. Holy shit.